fascinating day on Friday. We'll show you another clips we're inviting the community. We've got some new reporters coming, not just because Coach Brunson, but because of the message that's going to go out from this movie. And it starts again nationwide in October. We are just so excited to end Spiritual Emphasis Week with time of fellowship where we can watch this and really be encouraged. And then again, we'll talk to Coach Rudd about that experience to a guy who actually lived through what we're about to see on Friday. With that said, we've been coming here every day since Monday and hearing from the Word of God through Ryan Gard. We've got 2 more times with Ryan. Yesterday was more than powerful. That probably gave us enough to think about for the rest of the year. But God allowed us to get him for 2 more times. So for the 3rd day in a row, would you please welcome up Ryan Gard?
Can I be awkward? Let's take a picture of you. That's so creepy. I'll take a picture of you. I'm gonna back up, so maybe you can stand up, stretch out a little bit, jump up and down. I'm gonna go over here, and I'll tag you, I promise. Awesome. I know it's that. Great. Yes, sir. You're afraid of what chapel speakers? Creepy chapel speakers. Wow. Okay. Am I creepy? I can be creepy. No, thank you. You at the top. You're Miss Jackson? I don't even know if that's on here. Did I just make, is she over there? You're so grounded or suspended or something. Yeah, what's his name? What's his name? Jacob Lemonades. I don't know. Cool. Another one. I have violent, you can tell me afterwards. I have a violent reaction. I can't help it. I have hit like small children. I confess it. It was an accident because it was involuntary because they touched my belly button. I can't even talk about it. It's the weirdest thing. Is anyone, am I alone? So, how about, I heard sharks. I think everyone's afraid of sharks unless you want to die. Flying. I fly a lot. For like what I get around here and there, and I've got to get on planes to get there sometimes. And I don't understand why there will be this many people on a plane, and I'm the only one, it seems, that I'm fine when we're taxiing, and I'm fine when we're taxiing, but as soon as we start going down the runway, I'm not afraid of really anything, minus like a little bit of germs, and don't you dare touch my belly button, especially you, because that's just creepy speakers. Yes, don't. But when we're in the air, I don't understand it, and I can't see out the windshield. So I have trust issues. This is why I drive everywhere that we go. If it's a friend's car, I ask if I can drive. Let me drive, because I need control. And the worst part of it is when we are landing. How do you land a school bus with wings on like little donuts, these itty bitty little squishy things? How does it work? So every time we do it, we'll be landing and there will be people all around me. It doesn't matter if they're children or men or women, they'll be just reading. They'll be like reading or like talking or laughing or something, and I'm inside like screaming inside. You ever been in that moment where everyone else is fine, but you're panicking? That's every time I fly. I'm not embellishing. It's irrational. It doesn't make any sense. and I don't understand it, so I get terrified. So my friends that know this, if they ever travel with me, all they do is watch me the entire time that we're landing or taking off, like I'm some sort of show. I'm like, look away! Look away! I was 15, and I was trying to be, a man. I was trying to be so brave and so bold when I was 15, and I was seriously a coward. I was scared of everything, especially what people thought about me, but that's a different sermon for a different day. I was scared of everything. I felt like everything that had any sort of element of danger. My dad and I, he was a raging alcoholic. He drank every single day of his life, and he would drink, I remember exactly how much, 1.75 liters of bourbon every single day. That's almost a 2-liter of bourbon every single day, and he hid it from me until my freshman year when I walked in, my 8th grade year, I walked in, and he had been fired from his job, and he'd gone in and had, he had just gotten hammered, and before this was even common, he had taken a knife and had just started carving up his arms. Just cut. Not trying to take his life, but just trying to feel something. And it's a terrible epidemic these days. That's still some sort of common thing. I remember walking in as an 8th grader, seeing that, and then cleaning everything up real quick. I cleaned everything up. I was that kid that I was like, it's okay, it's gonna be okay. You're my dad, it's gonna be okay. And he eventually woke up and I helped him into his bed. For the next 2 or 3 years, we kept having this practice of me cleaning up after him, me pouring out what he didn't finish. But all the while, I had this unshakable trust. Despite all that in my dad, I trusted him 100% with my life. Even when he lost the next job, it was a tough time. I don't know what your life is like, but my dad, everyone started to figure out was an alcoholic. He became a cab driver, so one of those yellow cabs, you're like, oh, in my insecurity of what everyone else thought about me in high school, needing a ride to school became a terrifying thing. Ryan, did you take a cab to school? And I would play it off like, yeah, dude, my dad's too busy, so we had a cab to take me. And I'm trying to lie and spin it. He finally got another job with another car, lost that. And we had this up and down, but never, I don't know how, did I stop trusting my dad. I trusted what he said, I trusted that he loved me, and I trusted that he would take care of me. That's just this crazy connection many of us have with mom and dad, despite mom and dad. I pray that my kids have a much better experience with that kind of trust in me. And it culminated, he lost his job, so we had to move. So we moved to Boise, Idaho. We got to Boise, Idaho. Y'all been there? Yeah. We were there for an hour. And he walked in and to this place that he's supposed to have a job, and they said, we made a mistake, sorry. Got back in the car, arrived in Boise from Arizona, drove all the way there, went all the way to Bend, Oregon. Right. You've never heard of it. It's this little blip about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, I think, from Portland. That job didn't pan out, he got fired again. It's just unbelievable. So we moved to some friends in Portland, Oregon. We lived there for a little bit, and then he got fired there. And so I have this dad who's putting on display complete incapability to raise a son or to take care of himself. But nonetheless, I never stopped trusting him. To the point where my mom would get so frustrated, I'm getting a little counseling here for free. And my mom would be so frustrated with him and even with me that I would stay with him and not move in with her. I tried moving in with my mom, true story. She lived in Flagstaff, and I went up to Flagstaff for a month. I got up there, and my first day there in Flagstaff, I'm leaving school. I'm trying to play hoops. It's October or November. I'm trying to make the team. I'm like, that's my only hope. It's the only thing I'm kind of good at. I felt like anyway. Now it's just sad to watch. But this day I'm walking home, no friends. Not sure if Flagstaff's for me. And I was going to say, I think it's for the puppy faces now. Oh. And I'm walking home, and I look to my right, and there's this many people out in the football field. But half of them are way over here, and half of them are way over here. And they're shouting at each other. And it's like Monday. So I'm like, what's happening? And someone stops and stands right next to me, and I'm like, what's going on over here? And And I'm this super insecure city kid that's lived in 48 different places in the last few months. And she says to me, I don't know if it was a boy or a girl, she says to me, it's like to imagine myself talking to a girl my sophomore year, was that didn't happen. She says to me, oh, that's the cowboys, like boots and tight pants, and the Native Americans. They're about to get into a brawl. And I, in my 15-year-old insensitivity, looked at her and I said, cowboys and Indians still fight in Flagstaff? And I was like, I gotta go. And so I ran away from mom and went back home and found myself with my dad eventually in Portland. And that's just a free story, it doesn't have anything to do with the plot. Found myself in Oregon, driving home to Phoenix because we were gonna give it another shot. And my dad had a 280Z Turbo, a little itty bitty sports car. I don't know how he got it, but he had it. And that sucker would do 140, 150, and he'd show me that all the time. And we were driving, and it started to, out of nowhere, rain. In the middle of the night, like we weren't staying at hotels, we had no cash, so we'd either be sleeping in like a Safeway parking lot in the 280, or we'd just keep driving. This night, he decided to keep driving, middle of the night, and I'm sophomore, and I haven't hit my growth spurt. I don't know if you can tell, I'm 6'3", I was probably 5'5" at the time. So it hurt my junior year, man, I was stretching. But I'm sitting low in the chair, and all I'm seeing is out of nowhere, on this windy road, all this water starts to wash up onto the windshield. And the wipers can't handle it. The wipers are going and going and going, but all I see is blur. All I see is water, and all I see is what? I'm like, panicking. That's probably why I'm afraid to fly. I just realized that moment of fear of, I can't see, I'm terrified. Inside, I'm trying to be a man. I'm about to drive in 6 months, I think, and maybe I'll get my license. I'm trying to just kind of figure out how would I navigate this scene, right? You're just learning to drive, some of you, and so picture yourself just barely looking over the wheel, and all of a sudden here comes a flood of water over and over and over on the glass, and I'm inside of my mind, my body, my thoughts, and I'm freaking out. Terrified, screaming inside. You ever been there? Just scared, can't see what's going on. And I look over at my dad. I haven't looked over at him yet. And at this point, he's 42 years old. He's the hairiest dude you've ever seen, man. He was just very, very 1980s manly. Just very, he was wearing a white polo one day. And I walked up to him and I was like, oh, Dad, you got hair all over your shirt. How did you get so much hair on your shirt? And I start to I'm like, Dad, it won't come off. What's wrong with it? Oh my gosh, that's yours! And it come through, and ew! My dad had a tattoo on his arm. It was like an eagle and an American flag and flames, and I don't know, something, an octopus probably was on there. I had something rad. And he married this woman, not my mom. The first lady was named Becky, and then she left him. So my dad decided she needed to go. And so he took a knife and went to his arm and started to carve her name out of his arm. It hurt so bad he only got part of the bead. So for the rest of his life it said, right. That's it. I look over at him and I just look at this guy as like the supreme man. I felt like he was a beast. He went to Alaska for a year to be a fisherman after my mom left him. He spent a whole year on a boat in Alaska. Just grew a beard down to his knees. And I was like, you're the sweetest human being in the world. And lots of struggles, but broken fish. I look over at him in the midst of my panic. And I'm terrified. And I look over at him, and he is leaned back, smiling. One hand on the wheel. One hand on the wheel. I can't see above the dash. All I see is water, and he's one hand on the wheel, and everything's and it slows down, and I realize he's smiling as he's swerving at 55, 65 miles an hour, enjoying it. There's Roy Orbison playing on the radio. Your mom and dad know who that is. Just terrible music. And he's just enjoying this moment. And I look over at him, and I'm like, Dad! I say, Dad! How are you so calm? I can't see a thing. And he looks over at me, he's like, it's all right. And he says, I can. And I experienced for the first time in my life, not just knowledge of peace, but I experienced a flood of peace. this overwhelming, I'm gonna be okay, because he's okay. I looked at my dad, who fell so short of what it means to be a dad and a man and even a human being in so many ways. He just had so much struggle. But I looked at him, this man who had fallen so short, who the clock was ticking on him. He had a year and a half left to live. He was going to lose his life in a year and a half to a heart attack. His own doing. But even that man I looked at, and in that moment, I could look at him and go, if you're okay, I'm okay. I had that kind of trust in him. You got the disciples in Matthew chapter 8. I think it's a good segue into what they literally felt as Jesus puts them in a boat. Matthew chapter 8, I want you to go to verse 23. It's page 1255, 1255. You got the white on. This idea of being completely terrified in a certain situation. They're used to it. These are disciples that can follow Jesus for a little bit. It's only chapter 8. Hasn't been too long. He's done some incredible things, you'll see. We'll get to that. Matthew chapter 8, verse 23. It says, when he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. And behold, thank you, ESV, behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves. You got to be there. You got to picture it. You got to act like you can see it, feel it. Get in the boat in this story. All of a sudden, here comes a storm. The boat was being swamped by the waves. But he was asleep. Jesus was asleep. You've heard the story. And they went and woke him, saying, save us, Lord. We're perishing. And he said to them, why are you afraid, O you of little faith? And then he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. That's interesting. And then the men marveled, saying, what sort of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? You've heard the story. Jesus is taking a nap. Water's coming over the edge. That doesn't bother him. He can sleep through anything. He's that kind of peace. And the boys are like, get up. You got to get up. Lord, save us. We're going to perish. We're going to perish. And Jesus wakes up. He's like, gosh, guys, I was sleeping. Why are you afraid? Why are you afraid? Wouldn't you be like, hello? What do you mean? Why are we afraid? What? Are you not here? We're getting worked. And he's like, hey, I got this. Waves, stop it. Wind, shh. Well, I don't know how you rebuke storm, but he does. And it's like, okay, calm. And they're looking at him like, whoa. I bet they thought, as long as you're in the boat, we're going to be okay. As long as you stay in the boat, we're going to be all right. Like I felt when I looked at my dad. As long as you're driving, we're good. Matthew 14, he's about to put him in another boat. Uh-oh. But this time, Daddy ain't going to drive, it seems. Matthew 14, look at verse 22. You got it? Watch this. All right, so let me back up actually just so you understand some of the context. He's, since the first boat, he's healed some people. So people are like, whoa, you didn't use medicine. Yeah, I can do this. Well, he just heals people. And then there's a scene where thousands of people come out to see him. He's got to follow. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, it's getting late. It's dinner time. What are we going to do? You've heard the story. The disciples come and they're like, hey, Jesus, should we tell these people to leave? Jesus says, no, we'll feed them. And the disciples are like, what are you talking about? How are we going to feed them? There's no way. Remember yesterday, like you can do the rain thing with the bread, but they don't even bring that up. They just go ahead, there's no way for us to feed them. And some little kid's like, excuse me, hi. I brought a lunch. And he shows up, this little kid. He's probably a freshman, a cute little cutie. He's like, I brought some fish and chips. Right? And you've heard the story, right? And Jesus takes that, multiplies it, feeds all these people, right? We've talked about this. And it's a miracle. Feeds all these people. Probably 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 people. Your Bible says 5,000. There were women and children there that didn't get counted. I'm all girl power. Bible missed that one. Cultural thing. You're okay. But here's the thing. He just fed them all. And there was so much food that was leftovers. So much food that was leftovers. And so there's so much of a miracle that people are like, let's make him king. I would vote for him in the coming election. You know what I'm saying? They're like, we need a candidate to be king. And they felt more desperate than you and I feel in this moment. All right? I'm not going to get political, just throw some grenades. You don't know who I'm talking about. But they had this crisis, and they're like, let's make Jesus our king. And he's like, nope. Verse 22. Immediately, because all the crowd's rushing him, he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. So Jesus walks over to the water with the boys, and they're like, well, we remember chapter 8. Last time we went in a boat, you were in the boat, and it was legit. Do it again, do it again. And he's like, get in the boat. Okay. You're not coming? No. But last time you came in the boat, it was good. When you were in the boat, now you're not getting in the boat. It could be good. Like, they was terrified, sure. You're not going to come? No. He goes back to the crowd, says, I'm not who you think I am. I'm not going to be your king in this way. Go home. Shoot. They all walk away, and he goes to pray. After, he says in verse 23, after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. I love Jesus, man. He just got the crowd, the paparazzi, and he's like, I'm going to go pray. When evening came, so it's been a while, he was there alone. But the boat, by this time, was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. Again, I'm talking to Christians, right? Most of you, where you're trying to figure this out. But maybe you're in a situation where you can relate with this. You did what he told you to do, and it seems like he set you up to fail. This is real life, real human beings. This isn't bedtime stories. These are real humans that got in a real boat because Jesus told them to, and then they find themselves hours later, minus Jesus, who decided to stay up on the shore, in the middle of a storm that is beating their boat, tormenting their boat is the word, punishing their boat. The NIV says, buffeting, lax, like, right? It's like working the boat over, and Jesus is nowhere to be seen. Have you ever done exactly the right thing, been obedient, and still found yourself in the middle of a storm, some sort of life crisis? And have you ever been in a situation like this where you felt like Jesus was nowhere to be seen? Like, be real, be honest. You can be honest as a Christian. You read your Bible and look and see all these men and women going, how long, Lord, will you forsake me? How long are you going to hide your face from me? What? You've got Jesus himself going, if there's any other way than this pain, then please, but not my will. You can be honest. You can have seasons where you feel like you're out in the middle of a boat in a storm, and you did the right thing, and you don't deserve it, and it just seems like this doesn't make any sense. And the sea is throwing everything at it. You might be in a situation in life someday, maybe not, so this is just going to prepare you for when life throws everything at you. And it seems like you're going to sink. It just seems like it's going down, and God's nowhere in sight. Can we be honest? We're always supposed to have this perfect faith, and this perfect trust, and this perfect, I'm not even worried, I'm not scared of anything. And Jesus in this moment put his boys out in a boat. And I don't know if he knew the storm was coming. And you might disagree with me. But I've got a high view and understanding, I think, of Jesus and what he knows and doesn't know. I mean, the brother could read minds. I bet he could predict the weather. If he could get into the synapses of the brain and hear what people were thinking across the room, I bet he knew what the temperature was going to be later on that day. So I think he knew the storm was coming. And he was going to stay on the shore. What do you do when God's a jerk? It seems like it. What do you do when it seems like he's doing the opposite of what he should do? You got Moses. Spent most of his life probably asking, why? What are you doing? I really have to hang out with these guys forever? You got King David. You think you got family issues? His boys tried to kill him, take his throne. He's got Saul chasing him, chucking spears at his face. He had Goliath, but that worked out. Facing giants. You got Hosea. Here's one for you to share with mom and dad if you haven't heard this story. Hosea hears from the Lord. The Lord says to Hosea, I want you to marry a girl. Sweet. That sounds great, Lord. You've wired me up to love. Who am I going to love? Who am I going to show my affection to? I can't wait to... She's a prostitute. Come again, Lord. I'm setting you up with a girl. She's going to say yes. And then she's going to hook up with your friends, or your neighbors, probably some family, cousins, second cousins. She's going to hook up, and then you're going to have kids with her. They are going to be the worst kids you've ever seen. This is in the Bible, it's Hosea. You're going to have little demonic jerks for kids. That's a paraphrase. Hosea's like, well, why? Why? I'll explain. You just go get that girl. Okay. John the Baptist. The Bible says that really, essentially, when you look at John the Baptist, the kind of man he was, outside of Jesus, there wasn't anyone as awesome as John. There wasn't anyone that loved the Lord the way John did. There's no greater man. John the Baptist got arrested for being so great, got put in jail, sat in jail, even sent word to Jesus going, hey, I'm in jail. It's cool. Are you the one that I've been waiting for, that we've been waiting for, or should I wait on somebody else? I thought you were the one that we've been waiting for and hoping in, or am I wrong? Are you not who I thought you were? Jesus sends him some scripture. And then John the Baptist is sitting there one day and a guy walks in with a knife. Well, why are you here? Well, Herod threw a party. Herod's in charge here. He got a little drunk and he brought in a girl. And this little dancing girl decided she wants your head. It's weird, man, but I'm sorry. And John the Baptist, sitting in jail, was beheaded by a pervert. He's trying to please a little, so creepy. It's in the Bible. Let me pause because you get the point. If you follow Jesus, or you don't, you'll find yourself in a storm. How do we remain faithful in the midst of these storms? How do we remain trusting in the midst of and after these storms? My prayer is that for you. You're half as old as I am, so you're going to face a ton in the next 18, 28, 38, 48, 50 years. My prayer is that you finish strong and you finish with faith. So let's look at this one story again, verse 25, and see if there's anything we can learn from it in the midst of these crazy storms. It says, in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, Jesus, walking on the sea. Okay, cool trick. The fourth watch of the night. By the way, this is the way that they kept time. First watch, second watch, third watch, fourth watch of the night, and morning. Fourth watch of the night would have been between 3 and 6 a.m. So in the context of the story, they left the crowd about dinner time, set out across on what should have been a 2-hour trip. Now, they are 8 hours into this, and they're halfway across the lake. I'm pulling some information from some of the other Gospels when I explain that to you. They've been on a 2-hour trip across the lake. They're halfway, and it's been 8 hours of a storm. You understand? So they're exhausted, it's windy, there's waves, there's all this chaos, and here comes Jesus doing a little water walking. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, because humans don't do that, they were terrified and said, "It's a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. Why? Because humans don't walk on water. And to Jews, a little context for you, they were actually terrified of the water. I've read a couple of places that they actually saw it potentially as a source of evil. So the sea, the lake that they're on, in the storm, it actually was symbolic. It was representative of evil in the world. They thought actually, in fact, that how do you say it? There was I think I put it in my notes. It was an evil underworld. Like underneath the sea, it represented so much chaos and so much mystery and so much fear that they hate going on the water, many of them. And so now they've got someone walking on the water, walking towards them. In the midst of the storm, here comes this figure, and so one of them's like, it's a ghost, it's a ghost, it's a ghost. Of course you would. You'd think something superstitious. But it's Jesus. Serve him. Verse 27, but immediately, right away, Jesus spoke to them saying, take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. Take heart, it's me. Don't be afraid. What if, let me just ask a question and unpack that. What if his followers of Jesus would just say, okay, like you told me not to, so I'm not going to be. It's so hard, right? Take heart. Be courageous. It is I. Don't be afraid. Sir, we are getting tortured by waves. We're in the middle of nowhere. It's the middle of the night. We don't have food. We don't have snorkels. We don't have floaties. What do you mean, don't be afraid? Why would Jesus tell them not to be afraid? Because they're in the middle of something terrifying. He wouldn't say don't be afraid if he's serving them up some soup at the house. But they're out in the middle of a storm, so in the middle of the storm, the reason he tells them, do not be afraid, take courage, is because it's scary. It's terrifying. And so in the middle of their terror, he looks at him, standing on water, by the way, and goes, take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. This was actually written not in English. The phrase that he used there, it's misleading a little bit. But what he actually said, you could look at it this way, is when he said, it is I, some of you already know. What he actually said is, take heart, I am. Do not be afraid. Now, we'll go quickly past this, because I think it's interesting. He actually said, take heart, and then he used the name that God used, remember, to speak to Moses in a burning bush. Who's in there? I am. Okay. He said, I am. That's the name of God. So Jesus walking on water goes, he's saying some Pac-Man goes, he's saying some superstitious goes, you ain't got a Ouija board on board, all right? This is me, Jesus. I am. I love the word. In the Greek, I looked it up, because I was trying to figure out what it is, and I felt like it was wrong. I looked again, I was like, wait, that can't be it. The word that he actually used is spelled like this. He says, take heart, I am. Don't be afraid, but he actually said, take heart, and the word is Hayah. How do you say that? Hayah! Take heart. If it was English, I know Jesus didn't speak English. He could have, if there were anybody. And, apparently he was new, so we'll go down that road. He says, take heart, Hayah. Don't be afraid. Peter hears him. Someone catch that joke? I went somewhere, but I didn't say it. All right, good. Educated jokes. Peter is like, oh, you're usually in the boat. You're over there. I want to do that. You look at him and go, you idiots. Shh. He might have whispered to the boys like, should I ask him? Should I? Come on. And he has this moment where he's like, I want to do what you do. So Jesus tells him, take heart. Be courageous. It's me. Don't be afraid. So Peter's like, all right. Verse 28, Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, I think he knew it was, but Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. I want to do what you're doing. I love Peter. He's such a lunatic. Storm still happening. There's a man floating on top of it. Jesus. Peter goes, if that's you, tell me to come to you on the water. Hey, invite me out onto what I am the most afraid of. Okay? And Jesus, I wonder what did Jesus' face look like in that moment as he heard Peter say that? He had to have this like, you dummy. And then he said, come. Just one word. Come on. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on water and came to Jesus. Another miracle. He saw the thing with the bread. He saw the thing with the fish. And here comes Peter. And this is what the Bible will call faith. Peter, in the middle of a storm, in the middle of chaos, in the middle of uncertainty, chose to trust Jesus completely. He completely surrendered control. He did not put on floaties. He did not put on a life vest. He did not dip his foot in. He did not doggy paddle to Jesus. They didn't recreationally swim, so he might have known how to survive potentially, but not in a storm, right? A storm will kill you if you do not stay above the water. And Peter says, if that's you, I know, ghosts, underworld, demons, death, wind, wave, I know, but if that's you, tell me to come. Because if you're out there and you tell me I can come out there, then I'm going to trust that I can come out. I've never done this before, but if you say I can do this, I'm going to come out. And he does. He walks on water. I don't know if anyone else has ever done this except for ice fishing. I get it. I had this story one time. The kid's like, well, you totally can. When the lake freezes over, you can walk on it. So, I get it. You can ice fish. But I've never seen a baptism go this way. I baptize you in the, hey man. You know, like, no, you just keep going. Here's Peter, walking on water. Gotta give it to him. Go Pete. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately, there's the word again, reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, like an echo of chapter 8, oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? When they got in the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. Yep. He gets out, he walks on water. I feel like that 15-year-old kid again. He fixes his eyes on the wind and the waves. He sees the wind, it says. You can't see wind unless you are a super ninja with your eyes. You see dirt, you see dust, you see debris. He sees waves, sees spray, sees all of that. I mean, bro is out on the water, walking. You know, you ever seen a baby learn to walk? It's the cutest thing. I'm on YouTube. I have like one video, and it's called Griffin Learning to Walk. My little boy, when he was just a baby, he was like 6 months, 7 months old. He learned early, and he would walk out too. I said it was beautiful, and I'm gonna go through it again and again. I actually shared a little bit of this last year too. And he would lock eyes with Daddy, and he would walk. It was the cutest little thing. His chubby, itty bitty little thighs, and his itty bitty fat little ankles, and shoes that weren't meant for walking. They were decoration. He was walking on them, and he would do the same thing every time. He would walk, and then he would like look down and then go down. It's the same principle here. Peter's looking at Jesus, we're assuming, right? Walking towards Jesus on top of the water. And then he gets distracted. He looks at the wind, he looks at the wave. He makes them his focus. And fear creeps in. Doubt creeps in. Fear and doubt are talked about so much in the New Testament. The end of the Gospels are included with fear and doubt, loaded with it. Even after Jesus appeared in his resurrected body, there's still, I don't know. Doubt. I saw on Instagram, or 4 million of them, that said that the Bible tells you not to be afraid 365 times, because that's one for every day of the year. Those are people on Instagram. Those are people that, when they walk away from that phone in that situation, they're going to face situations that are terrifying like this. You got to give it to Peter. He walked on water. But then if we were in the story here, he sees it, he panics, he begins to sink, it says, and he gets his ankles, gets his calves, gets up to his feet, and then it says he got back in the boat. He grabs him. The arm of the Lord is not too short to save, by the way. Grabs him, gives him a little sermon, and then they got in the boat. Now, if you're Peter, and it's competition, but you understand, he wanted to impress the boys. He just did it, but then he failed. There's so much pressure. I don't know. I'm going to guess this is a Christian high school. And so I'd imagine one of the bits of baggage that you have is that you need to be seen or considered like super mature, never struggle. Like every fella in here struggles with the same exact thing. Ladies, I don't know what you struggle with. I have an idea, but fellas, I know you. Every single one of us has felt what it feels like to be sinking To be not just ankle or knee deep, but to be up to our neck with a noose of this sexual temptation and this desire, this exhausting desire to remain pure and to honor women, but to be constantly faced with a battle every day to be pure with our eyes and our thoughts and to honor the women sitting in this room. Ladies, you can fill in the blank with your thing. But we don't. We want to play. We want to play games. Here's what I have that you don't. I came to Christ, many of you, I don't know if this is your story, maybe you were growing up in the church. That's beautiful, and I wish that was my story, but one benefit of my story is this. I walked into church hungover. First thing I said at church, first time ever being at church, was a dirty joke. I let them know who I was when I got there. So they never had to go, oh my gosh. I walked in dirty, told them I was dirty, embraced the dirty, and then gave my dirty life to Jesus. I'm just a little less dirty. Positionally, I am holy, but now I never have to fake it. Because I walked in going, here's who I am. Do you want to tell everyone that? Whatever. But now you got to fake it. Now if you're Peter in the boat, you just sank in front of everyone. So Peter gets back in the boat, bashful. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Gets back in the boat, soaking wet in his failure. I have little faith. I have little faith. Jesus said, I have little faith? What did he mean? He didn't explain it. He said, I have little. Here's John over here. Maybe he's thinking the worst about John. He's projecting onto John what John's thinking about Peter in his soaking wetness. That's what you get. Thought you were so awesome. Thought you could walk on water. And he's probably wondering, what's everybody thinking about me? He's sitting in the corner of the boat, soaking wet, covered in his shame. He's just sitting there. Can someone give Peter a towel so he can dry off? It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. That's not what happens. But you ever been there? You know what Peter did? He took a step of faith and he failed. But he's still covered in shame nonetheless. And I was at a party. I liked this girl Sarah when I was in high school, and she invited us all over to a party at her house. And I really wanted to impress her, so I put on like my best outfit at the time. It was. I remember exactly what I was wearing. Khaki pants, baggy by the way, 90s. They were baggy. White, brand new shoes, Adidas. White stripes on brown polo. I'm all brown and then white shoes, but I look legit. I show up with my boys, and Sarah's there, of course, because it's her house. I see her. So Sarah. Thanks for having us. Trying to play it cool. I go into the living room, and my boys brought vodka. Don't drink. But they brought vodka, and I had way more than a human being should have. And so I found myself sitting on the couch in her house. As it sets in, just trust my retelling of the experience. You don't need to know. But as it sets in, I got really heavy. I'm sitting on her chair going, oh no. I all of a sudden felt like I weighed 400 pounds, and like my legs aren't going to work. I can't get up, smiling, waving at people, trying to just be cool. There were no cell phones, so we actually had to look at each other. Different day. But I'm sitting there and I realized I can't walk. I can't get up. That's my brain all of a sudden, like, what's happening? And then all of a sudden I realized I've got to throw up. I can't walk. I have to throw up. That's not a good combination. So in my little brain, I decide to myself, I can hide it. I'll make this work. Sarah's here. My boys are here. And so I just, oh, here it comes! Oh no! And when it comes, I'm looking around going, oh, there's no buckets! So I pull my shirt like this. But I wasn't like, I was like violent, you know, and filled my shirt, my khaki shirt, with puke. But I didn't think anyone saw it. I just looked straight ahead. And then I realized everyone in the whole house was looking at me like this. This has actually happened in my life before, but I was covered in puke and I it went all the way down my pants, all the way down to my brand new shoes. Shame. 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 Oh, shame. My boy Lonnie, my best friend growing up, he came in, he was violent, and he saw people laughing at him, and he started hitting people. He started just hitting people that were laughing. He walked in, I remember at least that much. He's like, you think it's funny? And he just starts hitting people. He's a crazy kid. Just got out of jail. For real. And I looked at him, I went, Lonnie, I didn't puce. That's what I said to him. It's not even a word! What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? And I walked out in shame. I tell that story because that's just, I deserve that. But we feel that sort of same sense of failure sometimes in the Christian life. And I'm telling you two sermons here because two things are happening. One, you've got a storm that they're facing and they decide to step out in the middle of the storm and trust Jesus. But all of a sudden it's going south and he's failing and he's covered in his shame. But it says that they worshiped him. And he's like, I know I'm a mess, but you're amazing. Like his response is, he's soaking wet in his, oh, you of little faithness. But his next response is to worship. Those in the boat, everybody worship Jesus, saying, truly, you're the Son of God. And Peter probably had his arms lifted to highest, saying, look what you did. I totally bombed. I totally fell. I totally sank. I bet Jesus is like, yeah, but you got out of the boat. You got out of the boat, dude. I would rather be that guy that takes a step of faith and fails than the other like 11 that are sitting in the boat watching. I'd at least want to be one of the 11 in the boat watching instead of the people sitting back on the shore that aren't even following Jesus, eating the leftovers from the last miracle. I'd rather be one of them. I'd rather be a guy like Peter who in the middle of what terrifies me the most looks right at Jesus and says, if it's you, you invite me to come out and walk on top of this, even though it scares me the most. Some people say God will never give you more than you can handle. Must be nice. Because in my life, he regularly gives me more than I can handle. Regularly gives me more than I can handle. And he regularly calls me to trust him to walk out onto what scares me the most. If you're looking for a safe life, skip this. If you're looking for safety, I mean, again, you got it. You're in the burbs. But when the storm comes, and it will if it hasn't, I mean, some of you are in it. I'm looking at people, and I'm seeing you're in the middle of something terrible right now. And we're talking about a scene in which everything looked hopeless, but Peter stepped out and walked on top of his greatest fear. He was walking when he was looking right at Jesus and trusting in the goodness and the power of Jesus. He was sinking when he took his eyes off of Jesus, when he took his focus off of Jesus and started looking at all the wind and the waves. That's when he went down. When the storm comes, you and I will be tempted to focus on the winds and the waves. When that happens, you refuse to forget how good God is, how powerful he is, that he is Lord of this storm, that he's always with you, even when it seems like he's not in the boat. He's with you. He's more powerful than all of that. And what I'm learning is I'm starting to learn more and more and more about God. I have my master's degree. So awesome. No. You know what I've learned the most? Is that God I only know one thing. He wants one thing for you. He wants a lot of things for me. He wants one thing from me and from you. He wants us to trust him. Trust is our gift back to God. It's the one thing he asks from us. Everything else he asks for us. But this one thing he says, I want you to trust me. I pray that there will be 400 and something students walking out of here saying, because you're calling me to it, and if you're calling me to it, I will be brave, I will be courageous, I will step out into whatever you call me into. Because you can walk on top of what scares me the most. For that reason, I keep my eyes on you. I'll get in it. I'll get out of any boat and walk on any storm. Listen, I'm talking to young people. I pray that when the storm comes, I'm not going to pray that they won't, because they will, Christian or not. I pray on the other side of those storms that you and I, we would get in the boat, we would get back in, and we would know him more, we would trust him more, we would love him more, that he would mold us and shape us in the midst of those. We'd be a whole lot more like him. Let me pray for you and for me. Now there's a handful of students in here going through hell right now. You don't need details, you know everything about it. It might have been something they did that caused it. It might have been something someone else did that caused it. There might be no reason, or we might not be able to put any blame on it. It might just be this world that's broken and needs a Savior. It's good news that you are one. It seems like sometimes you're not in the boat. It seems like sometimes we can't see you. Praying for those of us here, if we sat and thought about it for a moment, tears would well up, and we would be afraid of the situation we're in the middle of it. I pray that you would supernaturally, through your power, give them courage, give them a sense of your presence, the trust that you are the king, that this is your story, that this story ends well, and no matter what comes, we know the end of this story, and we want to learn what we can. Truth is, Lord, we want to walk on top of what scares us the most. Some of these storms in our life. I pray for my friends. No matter what they're going through, no matter what comes, they fix their eyes on you, Jesus, the author of our story. And you're so good. You love us more than we can possibly understand. In Jesus' name. I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. So one more day. We've done 3 days of Spirit Love this week. We have one more day of classes, worship, teaching. Then we've got a movie on Friday. Let's end well. Let's finish well. Ryan, thank you again. You're dismissed. Have a good lunch.